Today I'm taking you to a place that's extremely special. About once a year, I take a hike from my apartment across the fields, through the forest, and along the river to my favorite castle in Germany, Schloss Marienburg. Over the years, I've learned the story of this amazing place, and during that time, my heart has grown extremely fond of this castle and the land that it was built on. But to understand why this place means so much to me, you have to know both stories. The story of the castle and mine as well. This is a story about love, abandonment, and preservation. This is the story of Schloss Marienburg. Normally, stories about a castle start with war or ambition, but the story about Schloss Marienburg starts with something a little bit softer. It starts with a gift. In the mid-1800s, King George V of Hanover, newly king and newly blind, wanted to give his wife Queen Marie something extraordinary. A summer residence built on a hill that she adored. A place where she could look out across the valley and feel at home. The castle was meant to be a birthday surprise, a romantic dream planned by a man who would never see it with his own eyes, yet somehow imagined every detail perfectly. Long before I ever saw Schloss Marienburg for the first time, somebody who was about to become extremely close to me in my life had visited the castle numerous times already, and that person was Desi. Whenever life got tough, she'd come here alone. She would wander the paths, take photos, listen to the wind, and let the world just quiet down. This place was her sanctuary, and at the same time, a place that just seemed slightly removed from reality. And soon, Desi would share her sanctuary with me. Construction on the castle started in 1858, led by architect Conrad Wilhelm Haase. What followed was one of Hanover's most ambitious projects. Towers, spires, vaulted halls, carved stonework, all combined to create a neo-Gothic masterpiece rising above the valley. Queen Marie personally chose the colors, styles, and furniture, crafting a home where art, culture, and family could flourish. For a brief moment, the castle lived the life it was meant to. Royal gatherings, the smell of food drifting out of the windows, summers full of light and fresh air. But unfortunately, that dream didn't last. When Desi first took me to the castle, the gates were closed. You could walk up to the castle, you could touch it, you could chill out on the castle grounds and have a picnic or whatever, but there were no tours and you couldn't get inside. And despite all of that, it just felt so unreal. It looked like something pulled from a childhood fantasy standing right in front of me. And if you've never seen a castle like this with your own eyes before, well then it's a little bit harder to connect it to reality because you're always seeing these kinds of things in fantasy films if you don't live in Europe. It's so unreal when you see it for the first time. I'll just use this as an example. My mom came to visit me here in Germany about a year and a half ago, and Schloss Marienburg was the first castle that she ever saw. And she actually cried a little bit because she had never seen something like that. The majesty, the energy, it's just so unreal. In 1866, everything changed. Hanover was drawn into war with Prussia, the kingdom lost, and the royal family fled to Austria. When that happened, work on Schloss Marienburg stopped instantly. The rooms remained half-finished, waiting for a return that never came. The castle, once alive with hope, became frozen in time. For nearly a century, the castle remained in a strange state of locked rooms and unfinished chambers. It survived wars, political shifts, and generations without ever being fully completed. Its authenticity, however, came from its abandonment, almost as if it became a time capsule preserved by absence. A few months after my first visit, a convention was held on the castle grounds, and for the first time since I had moved to Germany, the gates to Schloss Marienburg were open. And of course, I went to go visit. I found myself submerged in craftsmanship, a warm atmosphere, the smell of old wood and leather. And as I walked over to one of the extremely tall stained glass windows and looked out across the landscape, well, the experience changed. I looked out across the landscape and felt one of the strongest sensations of déjà vu in my life. It wasn't a feeling of, I've seen this before, but a feeling of, I know this place. I've stood here. I've walked these grounds before. Somehow, it felt like home. The castle was still a gift of love. In the same way King George built the castle for the Queen, Desi introduced me to her sanctuary, which also became my place of peace and quiet. After that moment of déjà vu, something occurred to me. I can hike here. I don't have to drive or take a train, but like the adventurers in the stories I grew up with, crossing kingdoms, wandering landscapes, and making a journey towards a distant fortress, it stood out to me as the classic adventure. So I set out from my apartment, through the forests, across the fields, and along the river, traversing the land I now personally call the Marienburg Kingdom. As the world changed, the castle slowly started to come back to life. The House of Hanover opened it back up to the public. Restoration efforts started, then they stopped, then they started again. But people rediscovered this place as a treasure hidden in plain sight. By the early 2000s, tours and festivals filled halls that had once been silent. And today, the state of Lower Saxony is making really big efforts to restore the castle and preserve it for the future. Today, if you're lucky enough to explore the halls of Schloss Marienburg, you'll find yourself walking through the halls of 3 different intertwined histories. A king's love for his queen, a kingdom that vanished overnight, and the resilience of a castle that refused to fade away. Some rooms are exactly as the queen had left them. Other rooms are unfinished. And sometimes festivals are still held on the castle grounds. It is absolutely one of the most authentic neo-Gothic castles still here, precisely because its story was interrupted. Since that first hike, I return every year. And each year, my connection to the land grows stronger. I started to get to know the land by heart, the trails, the rivers and streams, and even the different animals. And slowly, I have the feeling that these fields and forests somehow know me too. It's strange. Almost like I've lived here before. Almost like this valley is an old memory, resurfacing over and over. Words will never explain it, but I feel it every time I return. So Schloss Marienburg was the first real castle I ever saw, but it became something so much more meaningful to me. It was where Desi and I found our peace together. And it's also where I made a connection to something that was so much deeper than just memories. Both stories begin with love bringing someone to the castle. The castle was a gift of love from the king to the queen, and Desi sharing her sanctuary with me. The castle was created out of love in the 1800s and shared through love in my own life. It represents sanctuary, peace, and emotional safety. Marie sought comfort in the castle's design, and Desi sought peace in its landscape. George wanted Marie to have a place that restored her, and Desi brought me to her place of restoration. Marie and George built something together, and Desi and I built memories there. Both stories involve a journey towards something beautiful. George dreamed the castle into existence, and I hike towards it every year. One journey was imaginative, the other physical, but both were guided by love and the desire to reach something meaningful. Queen Marie adored the valley and chose this place because of its beauty. And through Desi, I ended up connecting to the landscape in the exact same way and falling in love with the story of the land. 2 love stories, a century and a half apart, anchored in the same soil.